We might start down this end and work our way down along, apart from you, Conor, because I want you to answer last.
No pressure.
So Brian, you've been here, you've heard everything that's gone before today. What happens now and what do we do next?
Okay, that's a big question.
It is.
I thought I'd get an easier one.
No.
I suppose what I'll say and what we are currently doing, I suppose, and then we can maybe perhaps go from there. So within the PDS team, within the Health and Wellbeing team, we do offer in-service around the country on a national level. It's open to all teachers who are registered with the Teaching Council. So far this term, we've trained over 300 post-primary teachers in introduction to SPHE. We also offer training around RSC, sexual orientation, substance use, internet safety. But we also offer 3 training days around mental health as well. Again, they are open to all teachers to attend, and they are being very well received. And in fact, this term, the numbers have increased dramatically. And we have met that demand by putting on extra training days as has been deemed necessary. So I suppose from our point of view, we are offering quite a lot of training, and if teachers do want to avail of that training,
it's there, and you're willing, ready and able. And Tomas, are you going to tell us that you can go, if you're a member of the Teaching Council, you can go and chat to Brian, or what are you doing, what can you do, what do you plan to do as a result of today to further this agenda?
I think what I would take from today is, I think I'd paraphrase Samuel Beckett, the playwright, who talked about, paraphrase what he said, and say connect, connect again, connect better. I think that at every level, each of us in our own respective contexts, in our schools at a human level, to make that effort that Conor so eloquently talked about and Angela talked about as well, to connect at a human level, give that listening ear to someone else who you don't know what's going on behind their faces. But equally, there's a huge responsibility on organisations like the Teaching Council to connect with the IPPN, connect with the NCCA, the department and so on, and model and be the change we want to see. I think there's too much of a tendency in Irish educational discourse to date to depend on those at the top, and sometimes have kind of centre out, top down type of change dynamics.
But I mean, your organisation would be a major stakeholder here,
yeah.
And you've got to take charge of this to a certain extent.
Yes, we have to show leadership rather than take charge. I think what I've learned the last 3.5 years, Claire, it's a really good question, is that, and it's in our strategic plan, our impact as an organisation will only be as good as the relationships we have with others. We talk about the 3 R's of teachers' professionalism: research, reflective practice, and relationships. And they sound so simple, but there's a huge complexity of humanity behind them. And I think when people talk about the Teaching Council, the NCC, or the department, and we all, including myself, tend to forget sometimes, the state is people. Organisations are people. And when the Teaching Council, Inc. meets the IPPN, it's Tomas O'Rourke meeting Sean Cottrell or Pat Goff or Maria Doyle. And the quality of the outcome of our discussions depends on how we relate to each other and how much we make allowance for each other as people. And not to be too touchy-feely about it, but still to have some sense of awareness. We don't know the road they've travelled to come to that room, or that I've come to travel to that room. But so much hinges on the quality of our conversations. Right. I think the same applies across the system.
So Margaret, the same question for you then. I mean, where do we go from here? Because everybody has great intentions.
I think it's very challenging for schools, and I think Nora Heenan is there. She asked the question this morning. There are so many initiatives, so many things, and it's almost like the school thinks this is the magic bullet, the latest initiative. It's going to solve my problem if only somebody would come in and help me. What I would say, and it was a little activity I had at the end of my presentation, but I think the Taoiseach was probably better to listen to than me, but I was going to ask you to stop and think. You know the jigsaw that I had, the health protocol school jigsaw, curriculum, environment, policy, partnership. To think about, there's a questionnaire at the back of the guidelines. We have plenty of materials. The guidelines are there for primary and post-primary schools. There's a questionnaire. Take a look at the questionnaire in the back of the guidelines. Pick one of those parts of the jigsaw. Think, what can I do in my school to effect change? You're all teachers, I presume, in primary, post-primary schools, to effect change in my school, maybe this term. Sitting down, it might be having a conversation with your principal, or it might be just getting the materials. The books were sent to every school, but I'd say a lot of schools have lost them. They are available on the Department of Education website in the NEP section. There's lots of resources there. Take them out. Find the time, and I know that's a challenge for schools, but find the time, whether it's Crow Park hours or whatever, and have a look and say, what action can I take right now? And maybe problem solve within your school. That's really a step. There's even getting to know the programs, the materials. Your school is unique. You are in a community. There are supports within your community. We talked this morning about the diversity and the lack of services somewhere, and the diversity. There's no standard approach. NEPs, we try to be standard. Your NEPs psychologist, if you want to ask them to help you with this process. And then we have Brian, he's there. We have the Special Education Support Service, and we have the National Behaviour Support Service. We're 4 services that collaborate closely. So we are there to help you, and we want to hear from you. So that's really a practical strategy.
Well, that's useful to hear. And Angela, from you, just briefly, I mean, what do you want to see happen as the next step or steps?
I suppose what we need to concentrate on is having these conversations. There is within our brains, I discovered recently, a reticular activating system which is called RAS. That RAS is like a bouncer at a door. It screens. You could not possibly take in all the images, all the conversations, all the stimuli that are coming to you. Your brain would explode, literally. So this is like the bouncer at the door who concentrates and knows that there are certain things that are important to you. So if you have a belief and you focus on that, your RAS will allow the messages, the people that are important and who will support that belief and that focus, you will meet them. We discovered that over the last number of months in preparing for this symposium. The catalyst, I think, was Conor at our conference, and each and every one of the people in the support office have brought something to this day. They have brought so what's important.
One message for people to take home, because I did promise that
start
they could go.
the conversation with your school community. Don't have the courage to start the conversation and keep having those conversations. You will be amazed at the difference it will make.
Great, thank you.
And mind yourselves.
And mind
Find
yourselves.
a way to mind yourselves.
That's one of the important bits to this whole thing as well, isn't it? It came through what everybody was saying, that you've got to get that bit right before you can move on to the rest. Conor, finish it out for us. You and I are the outsiders here. We're outside the education space, so a lot of the language is a little bit strange, but I mean, let's try and humanise it again and tell people what you think should happen.
So, you know, if I learnt anything out of the cock strikes, other than the Cork County Board, and do you know what, I better stop before I go any further with that one, but if I learnt anything out of it was that a few people can begin a movement, but to achieve anything lasting, you need the majority of the people to come with you. And so the challenge we're asking and we're putting down to all the people involved in the educational sector is to come with us all on this new and fresh conversation that's begun in our country over the last couple of years. And to finish, Marie Curie, the Polish physicist, once said, "There's nothing in life to be feared, only to be understood. Now is the time to understand more so that we may fear less. And now is the time for us to understand more about suicide, about depression, about emotional well-being, about people's real and authentic selves. And more than anything, the challenge is to understand ourselves. And we owe it to each other, and we owe it to the children yet unborn to deepen that understanding. That's the challenge for each individual human being that I will put down as we leave today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you for staying late. I really appreciate it. On behalf of IPPN, thank you for being with us and for your rapt attention throughout the course of today. A thank you too to all of our speakers who came along. There were a lot of them. They gave a lot of their time, so we're very grateful to them as well. I want to say thank you to Geraldine and to Maria and Pat and to Sean, of course, for having me here and looking after me so well. Do you want to say a few words?
Well, I am certainly not going to let the day pass without thanking you, Claire, because you have been sensational. I'd very much like to say we colour coordinated, but it was purely accidental that we came in our pink. But for future reference, we certainly will. I could not be a prouder president than I am today. Today was a risk. It was certainly a risk, and I think the risk has paid off. We're very happy. Thank you once again, all of you, for being here. This is the start of the conversation. Watch this space. Slán go fóill.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Maria.